Okay. Uh, there we go. I got a little review of a discussion I had with TRock. Some people might not have known I had a discussion with TRock, and it was interesting. But just wanted to review it because I'm just wondering whether or not I have a control on the English language or not, or something. I might not be able to know how to ask questions or something. So I just wanted to review this and see if I could see what I can improve on or something. Because hold on, let me just do this thing here, this thing here, and I guess I'll just go ahead and go over here, and we'll just play some of this discussion that I had and see if I know how to ask questions or something, because it doesn't seem like I'm asked the question the right way or something. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure it out.
I'm excited to see what you both bring to the table. So, okay, we're going to wrap it up. Jungle Jargon, appreciate you
We'll wrap it up.
being
Okay.
here in a way.
Yeah,
I know
let's
you
wrap it
were
up.
simulcasting over on your channel. And so if you had some final words, final
Yeah,
thoughts
let's
in
wrap it
terms
up.
of the night,
Final,
go ahead.
final
Well,
word.
yeah, now it's a serious discussion. All that was. I'm glad that they had a chance to,
Final
get it
statement.
out and discuss things and everything. It was,
Already
it was
asked
good.
Joe
But
Jackson
I do
Rose
have a question for
a
T-Rock.
couple
Maybe
of
he could,
times. Oh, here we go.
help me out or whatever. And
See if I asked the question.
anyways, T-Rock, how are you?
Doing good. It's good to meet you. Appreciate you coming on, and I didn't realize you were simulcasting, but that's great.
Yeah, well, I had this question for you because I mean, you're, I guess, you're engineer, right? So
That's kind of my career and educational background is along the line. Yes.
so my question is whether or not if you've considered or know about or seen the evidence for the breakup of the continents after the global flood.
Okay, does he know about or has he seen the evidence for the breakup of the continents after the global flood? So I'm asking about evidence. If he knows about the evidence of the breakup of the global flood. Okay, let's see how it goes.
After the global flood,
Yeah.
no, that's a great question because one of Michael Ord's complaints about, I guess he probably directs it more at the CPT model. One of his complaints, he says you've got a mechanism to break them, but you don't have a mechanism to put them back together because there's some apparent collisions. Some of them are.
This I don't know what he's talking about. Breaking up the continents, putting them back together. I don't know what this putting them back together is about. I don't know about. I know about the breaking up the continents. I don't know about putting them back together. Is he talking like, you know, huge sections of sediments on top of each other, shifting? I don't know what he's talking about. But I'm just talking about. I'm asking about the breakup after the global flood. So let's see what happens here.
On existing very large mass continents, I guess, and maybe some of them are apparent collisions that have subsequently separated again. I'm not sure, but no. So to answer your question, what I was describing to Erica or to Dr. Joel Duff was about energy dissipation tends to be exponential. So what that means to me is whether you're talking about continents drifting or you're talking about volcanoes erupting. So I'll use the volcanoes as a example lead in. Volcanic eruption, the very first appearance of a de novo volcano, you might have huge energy release from it. But then over time, the eruptions get weaker and weaker and weaker, right? So this looks like an exponential decay curve in the energy release. And what that means to continental collision and so forth is you expect the exact same thing So we say the flood was over at day 371 when Noah and company get off the ark, but that doesn't mean geological processes are done. And so even today, when we talk about mountain peaks rising, for example, it's a common thing that the critics like to point to. They are rising, but you know what they're doing? That exponential decay of energy. That's residual kinetic energy left over because the flood happened. And so, in similar fashion, when you talk about continents and their collisions, I would fully expect that land masses to this day, per what we actually can measure, they are still moving. So there can be.
Yeah, the movement of the continents is going to continue, maybe because of the previous activity, but it's still going to be moving anyways. As far as I can tell, there's still going to be movement of the continents, whether regardless of how small it is, there's still going to be movement. There's still going to be mountains rising and plates separating, or movements of the plates and stuff, subduction still happening. It's still going to happen regardless, because the earth is a dynamic, but it's not going to be any movement. It's not going to be as fast as it was, during or after the global flood. My question is, after the global flood, if he knows about, the evidence. But I don't know if I asked the question right.
Post flood continental movement and collision. Does that answer your question?
No, because my question was whether or not you're familiar with or know about the evidence supporting the breakup of the continents after the global flood. In other words,
Okay. I was trying to ask a question, that would be simple enough just to get the conversation started, but apparently I don't know. See, so I give the example.
was about 100 years or so after the global flood, in the days of Peleg, the Bible says the earth was divided, and there's a lot of evidence to support that.
Okay, so I say there's a lot of evidence to support the breakup of the continents after the global flood. In other words, the Bible says the earth was divided, but my question was about the evidence to support what the Bible says about the breakup of the continents after the global flood in the days of Peleg. Because the word Peleg means divided, and the later Aramaic form of the Hebrew, it no longer meant divided. It meant as the waters flow, or where the waters flow after the continents were divided, right? So, that's circumstantial evidence, but there is actual physical evidence that the continents broke apart after the global flood. I'm asking if he knows about the evidence, if he's ever heard of the evidence to show that the breakup was after the global flood instead of during, or at least, well, what happened during the flood is a lot of activity too, but the actual breakup, the evidence shows that it happened 100 years after the global flood. So I'm going to see if I can get this conversation started here. See what's going on here.
And I just wanted to know if you knew about any of that.
So yeah, I've heard some of the biblical argument for sure. And so when
this is where I have a problem. I'm not asking about the biblical argument. I'm asking about the evidence supporting what the Bible says. Because the Bible says one statement: in the days of Peleg, the earth was divided. That word divided came to mean as or where the waters flow after the continents were divided. No longer meant divided, it meant where the waters flow, obviously, apparently between the continents after they broke apart. So that's what the Bible says. But I'm not asking about what the Bible says. I'm asking about the evidence to prove or to show that the breakup had to have happened after the sediments were deposited, after the global flood, after the fossils were buried, after the sediments were deposited, after the runoff, after everything, because it just couldn't have happened before. The breakup couldn't have happened before, say, 100 years after the global flood. Couldn't have happened because of certain geological changes that happened. It could only happen after the global flood. Couldn't happen during or before.
When you hear from groups like CMI, they tend to strongly disagree with the continents splitting apart.
Yeah, and I'm not asking what people believe. I'm asking about the evidence to support the breakup of the continents. So
during the days of Peleg. Now, on the one hand, they do make a really good point, and to be honest with you, I've kind of gone back and forth and just trying to weigh the evidence and figure out exactly what does make the most sense. The evidence for it, I think, when you talk about evidence like that, physical evidence from a secular viewpoint, to say,
okay, it's got nothing to do with evidence. Doesn't have anything to do with secular or creation based or anything. Evidence is evidence. I just want to know about what the evidence is. You could call it secular evidence, but it's evidence. The evidence is what it is, and it can't be changed. And this is where the conversation just was cut off in a little bit, but because we had storms in Missouri, I almost had my internet almost went down just before this exchange took place, and then apparently the storm hit TRock where he was, and so it knocked him off. But anyways, I wanted to get I haven't had any offers to make it up or anything, or to make it right, to make it better, or anything like that. I did get a sorry from Sam. Sam said he was sorry I was cut off, but no offers to, like, make it. After waiting 5 hours, I waited 5 hours to have this end of the trailing end of this open mic, quote unquote, open mic discussion, and then to get cut off like that, and it was after everybody's final statements. After everybody's final statements, I'm supposed to make a final statement too. I didn't even ask a question. I waited 5 hours to ask a question. I didn't even ask a question. And then this happened, and of course it was already 5 hours. Everybody's tired. Everybody wanted to go home. Of course, they were going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. This little thing, that little thing, this little thing, that little thing, but this, but that, but this. 5 hours. Anyway. All right. So at this point, the conversation basically, doesn't finish. Didn't even get started. It didn't even get an answer to my question. I'm trying to get an answer to the question: what is the evidence, or does anybody know about what the evidence is of the breakup of the continents happening after the global flood? What is that evidence? That's all I want to know.
say it's post flood, the creationists would have to take something like post Cenozoic, or at least Cenozoic.
Yeah, now the Cenozoic is basically erosion and stuff that happened after the global flood, and but that's still is still unrelated to the breakup of the continents, because the break of the continents is the entire uh, geologic layers. They call it geologic column. The entire set of layers broke apart. In other words, they were deposited in the global flood. The layers cemented to partially cemented. It cracked up and broke apart. The earth is spinning. The entire globe was basically on the South Pole, shifted to one side as the earth was spinning. It was like wobbling. Then ice accumulated there at the South Pole. And then glaciers started moving. So there's glaciers on top of the bedrock. And before the breakup at the South Pole. And, to me, it's so obvious, just like you cannot deny that the breakup happened after the global flood. That's just one point, one piece of evidence. And there's all kinds of circumstantial evidence beside. So anyway, here's Donnie's response here.
I think we might have temporarily lost TRock. I wanted to ask Sam a question. What's the opposite of hello?
Goodbye.
Anyways. So that's about it. Too bad.
Very much, and I'm thrilled to be back with so many great American patriots, which is exactly what you are. We stand for our freedom, vote for our values.
Come on. All right. So we got good morning, Doki. Here we go. Good morning. Here we go. Too bad LPP. Yeah, I don't know what happened. He retired with the until 5 a.m. after shows. Oh, until 5 a.m. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I used to participate in those too, but I can't participate in right now. But I want to know what happened to LPP. I hope everything's okay, because last I heard he was doing these conversations, having these conversations, and he might have gotten canceled or something. I don't know. But anyways, that's about it. That was my summation of my big discussion with TRock. So maybe I could have a rematch, another discussion sometime. I didn't get an offer yet, and I'd like to be able to do it on Donnie's channel. I mean, that's the whole point. But anyways, that's, so much for that. So that's about it. There's not a whole lot I can say about it, much more. At least not right now. But I did give away one key evidence, if you know anything about the geology, the geography of the continents. I did give away one key piece of evidence to maybe get the ball rolling. I don't know. So that people can, because the question is not about what evidence there is in the Bible. I mean, there is evidence in the Bible, but that wasn't my question. My question was, what's the evidence to support what the Bible already said? The actual evidence. That's what I want. That's my question. do they know about the evidence to support the breakup of the continents 100 years or more after the global flood, in the days of Peleg? So God bless everybody, and take care.